Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. The Miami Dolphins find themselves at a crossroads, and the entire NFL world is watching closely. Ever since Mike McDaniel took over as head coach in 2022, he's been painted as the cool, quirky leader with a modern edge. His press conferences go viral, his personality seems tailor-made for social media, and his schemes have created fireworks on the field. But as time has passed, the same elements that made him stand out are now starting to look like weaknesses. In the eyes of critics, 2 playoff appearances with 0 wins, combined with late-season collapses in consecutive years, have raised serious questions about whether this style can truly sustain long-term success. To add fuel to the fire, this joint practice against the Detroit Lions didn't just expose the Dolphins, it embarrassed them. For owner Stephen Ross, perception matters, and being labeled as soft may be the one thing he simply cannot accept. The Dolphins' practice with the Lions turned into a nightmare scenario, one that painted Miami as overmatched and underprepared. Reports said it was the most lopsided joint practice some insiders had ever witnessed. And that's a damning statement. Detroit's offense, led by Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown, executed with ease. They carved up Miami's defense as if it were a preseason walkthrough. Meanwhile, the Dolphins' quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa and Zach Wilson, looked rattled, throwing interceptions and getting swallowed by Detroit's defensive front. It wasn't just a bad day at the office. It was a public reminder of the criticisms Miami has struggled to shake. Worse yet, Lions linebacker Grant Stewart had added spice before the practice by suggesting Miami wasn't as tough or physical in preparation. Instead of silencing him, the Dolphins played right into that narrative, leaving everyone from fans to analysts wondering about the true identity of this team. When former NFL head coach Eric Mangini weighed in on the situation, his words carried weight because he has lived through the pressures of leading a franchise. Speaking on the herd, Mangini made it clear that McDaniel should be deeply concerned. If I'm the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, that's the last thing I want people saying about my practices, he explained. For Mangini, the issue wasn't just a bad practice. It was that Miami has now reinforced its reputation for fading late in seasons and lacking the grit to sustain success when it matters most. In 2022, the Dolphins opened with an 8-3 record, only to limp into the playoffs at 9-8. In 2023, they stood at 11-4 before losing their final 3 games, including a humiliating wildcard defeat to Kansas City. The trend isn't coincidence, it's a pattern. And that pattern is exactly why a sloppy joint practice has blown up into something much bigger. Owner Stephen Ross is not just another name in the league's ownership circles. He's a billionaire developer with a reputation for being bold and demanding. In the NFL, perception is often reality, and Ross does not want his team to be known as anything resembling soft. Mangini pointed out the obvious. Ross has built his empire on toughness and relentlessness, so watching his franchise earn the opposite label won't sit well. Even if it's just a joint practice, the optics are damning, and Ross knows how quickly narratives form in today's media environment. What's especially dangerous for McDaniel is that these narratives feed directly into prior criticisms of his laid-back coaching persona. When a coach already carries a reputation for being too easygoing, every misstep confirming that criticism becomes magnified. In other words, McDaniel is no longer battling just opponents on the field. He's battling the perception that his leadership style has limits. For Colin Cowherd, the well-known voice who loves to challenge football orthodoxy, the problem wasn't just that Miami was criticized. It was the type of criticism. He explained that if reports had surfaced about the Dolphins being overly physical, even crossing the line in practice scuffles, it would have been better. Why? Because that would have contradicted the narrative of softness. Instead, Miami received the one label they could least afford, confirmation of weakness. Cowherd even suggested that a report of fights breaking out, of Miami being too aggressive, would have played in McDaniel's favor. Ironically, a fight did break out late in practice between Jamison Williams and Ifeatu Melifonwu, but reports jokingly noted that the Dolphins lost that too. That's how bad the optics were. It wasn't just that Miami got beat. It was that they failed to show any spark or intensity even when emotions finally boiled over. Critics argue that this entire situation cuts to the heart of what makes the NFL so different from other sports. Toughness isn't optional. In basketball or soccer, a team can often finesse its way to victory. In football, grit, intensity, and resilience are the baseline requirements for success. Being called soft is the ultimate insult because it doesn't just question talent, it questions hard. For the Dolphins, who have invested heavily in roster talent with stars like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey, the thought that they might crumble under pressure is devastating. A roster that looks flashy on paper won't mean much if the team consistently fades in December and January. Fans can tolerate quirky press conferences, a McDaniel's unconventional style when the team is winning. But once results stall, the same quirks look like distractions, and the perception that Miami lacks an edge grows louder and harder to ignore. The irony of McDaniel's situation is that his offensive system has, at times, been revolutionary. In 2023, the Dolphins led the league in total yards and produced highlight after highlight, often looking unstoppable against lesser competition. But football is a sport that rewards balance and toughness. And when the schedule tightens, finesse alone doesn't hold up. Miami's struggles against physical opponents late in the season highlighted this flaw. That's why the Lions' practice stung so much. It wasn't just a meaningless scrimmage, it was symbolic of the exact weakness analysts have been pointing out. And when symbolic moments align with existing doubts, ownership takes notice. Steven Ross has shown loyalty to coaches in the past, but his patience isn't endless. With Miami's playoff window still open thanks to its talented roster, Ross won't want to waste time on a leadership experiment if the results point toward the same disappointing ending yet again. Supporters of McDaniel argue that he should be given more time to grow as a coach. After all, he's still one of the youngest head coaches in the league, and his creativity has undeniably elevated Miami's offense. But time is a luxury rarely afforded in the NFL, especially when a team has already made 2 playoff appearances without advancing. The Dolphins are no longer seen as a rebuilding project. They are viewed as contenders. That shifts the expectations dramatically. Ross is looking not just for playoff berths, but playoff wins. He doesn't want his organization branded as a team that folds under pressure because that stigma can haunt a franchise for years. This is why the current storm feels so serious. McDaniel isn't just being judged on wins and losses anymore. He's being judged on culture, on perception, and on whether his leadership truly reflects the toughness Ross demands. For fans, this situation has become both frustrating and nerve-wracking. On one hand, they've seen flashes of brilliance. That prove McDaniel can build something special. On the other hand, they've seen collapses that leave scars. It's exhausting to celebrate an 11-4 record only to watch it dissolve into another bitter ending. The Detroit practice fiasco has only added fuel to this emotional roller coaster. For Dolphin supporters who have been waiting decades for consistent postseason success, patience is thin. The fear is that this talented roster could end up wasted if leadership doesn't evolve quickly. While McDaniel's personality made him a breath of fresh air in 2022, now it risks being viewed as unserious or ineffective in the face of adversity. Fans are left asking, will this be the year Miami finally pushes through? Or will history repeat itself yet again under a coach still learning on the job? At the end of the day, McDaniel's future in Miami may hinge on something far less tangible than schemes or play calling. It may come down to perception. If his team can shake the label of softness, grind through December, and finally win a playoff game, the narrative will flip overnight and he'll be hailed as the innovative leader who changed the Dolphins. But if the team falters again, especially after a humiliating practice that symbolized every criticism, it could be his final season in charge. That's the reality of the NFL. Progress without results doesn't last forever. Stephen Ross didn't. Build $1 billion empire to be embarrassed by words like soft. And he won't tolerate his franchise being branded that way for long. For McDaniel, 2024 might not just be about wins and losses. It might be about proving his style isn't just cool, but tough enough to carry Miami where it wants to go. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? Surreal news is spreading like wildfire in the NFL community, and if it turns out to be true, it could go down as one of the biggest shocks in recent football history. Rumors are swirling that Travis KELCE, the legendary tight end who has become synonymous with the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty, is packing up his bags and heading to Miami to join the Dolphins in 2025. Think about it for a moment. KELCE, who built his career catching passes from Patrick Mahomes, leaving the comfort of a team that has dominated the league for years and suddenly putting on teal and orange. This is not the kind of storyline fans expected to hear at this stage of his career, especially with all the legacy, the championships, and the deep bond he's had with Kansas City. Yet, whispers keep growing louder, and it's starting to sound like more than just smoke. For years, KELCE has been the heartbeat of the Chiefs' offense. Not just a reliable target, but a weapon that defenses could never fully solve. His chemistry with Mahomes looked untouchable, almost like a quarterback-tight end duo designed in a lab. Every postseason, every big play, you could count on KELCE to be there, moving the chains or finding the end zone when Kansas City needed. At most, that's why the rumor of him leaving has fans completely baffled. Why would KELCE step away from that? Why would he leave the system that made him a first-ballot Hall of Famer? It doesn't add up on the surface. But insiders are hinting that the Dolphins presented him with something fresh, something different, something that might have reignited his fire late in his career. Miami's young roster, its market appeal, and the sunny lifestyle could all be part of the equation. And let's not ignore the Dolphins' trajectory. This is a franchise that has been clawing its way back to relevance, building around Tua Tagovailoa, investing heavily in wide receivers, and trying to create an offensive juggernaut that can go toe-to-toe with the best. Adding Travis KELCE to that mix would be like strapping a rocket to the offense. Imagine defenses trying to cover Tyreek Hill, stretching the field deep, Jalen Waddle running wild underneath, and then, oh, by the way, KELCE working the seams with his unmatched route, running on physical dominance. It almost feels unfair. It's no wonder the rumor has Dolphins fans salivating, even if they're cautious about believing it until official confirmation arrives. Still, the chatter is loud enough that it feels impossible to ignore anymore. Of course, Chiefs fans are not handling the rumor well. Social media is filled with disbelief, anger, and heartbreak. Kansas City has grown accustomed to seeing their superstar tight end not only dominate on the field, but also serve as a personality and leader off it. He's been central to their identity, a fan favorite who has embraced the city and been embraced right back. For him to walk away now, when many thought he'd finish his career as a one-team legend, feels like a betrayal to some. The idea of him catching touchdowns in another uniform, especially one belonging to a team that has been in AFC battles with Kansas City, is a tough pill to swallow. It's almost as if fans are bracing themselves for a nightmare scenario, and some simply refuse to accept it until it's officially announced. What's fascinating is that KELCE himself has been cryptic lately. He hasn't come out to deny the rumors, nor has he given any indication that he's fully committed to staying put in Kansas City. Interviews have shown him smiling when asked about his future, dodging questions with playful answers, and leaving plenty of room for speculation. Some see it as a classic veteran move, keeping options open while negotiations play out behind closed doors. Others think it's more serious, that KELCE has already made up his mind and is just waiting for the right moment to break the news. Either way, his silence is fueling the frenzy, and it feels like each passing day only makes the whispers more believable. From a football perspective, the fit is tantalizing. Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel is known for his innovative schemes and creative use of offensive weapons. Adding KELCE would give him a chess piece unlike any other, capable of dictating coverages and opening opportunities for every other playmaker on the field. It's not just about the passes KELCE would catch, it's about the way defenses would have to shift their entire approach. Miami could line up in ways that stress opponents to the breaking point, creating mismatches. Everywhere, analysts are already fantasizing about play designs that would be practically unstoppable with KELCE in the mix. And let's be honest, seeing him reunited with Tyreek Hill, even on the opposite side of Mahomes, would be one of the most dramatic storylines the NFL has ever delivered. There's also the lifestyle factor, which cannot be ignored. KELCE has become as much of a celebrity off the field as he has been on it. And Miami provides a stage unlike almost any other NFL city. Between the nightlife, the culture, and the exposure, it's easy to see how the allure of South Beach might appeal to him. Combine that with the chance to build a brand in one of America's most glamorous markets, and suddenly the idea of leaving Kansas City doesn't seem as far-fetched. While the Chiefs offer loyalty, tradition, and a guaranteed place in history, Miami offers reinvention, new challenges, and the excitement of something entirely different. For someone like KELCE, who has always embraced the spotlight, the attraction might be irresistible. But let's not dismiss the possibility that this could all be a power play. Sometimes athletes let rumors swirl for leverage in contract talks, pushing their current team to sweeten the deal or show more commitment. The Chiefs front office knows exactly what KELCE means to the franchise, and losing him would be catastrophic both on and off the field. If there's even a sliver of doubt about his loyalty, they might be forced to come back to the negotiating table with an offer too good to refuse. In that sense, the Dolphins might not actually land KELCE, but simply serve as the looming threat. That makes Kansas City pay up. That angle makes sense, but again, the smoke feels thicker than a mere bluff this time. The NFL has a history of shocking moves, and veteran stars changing teams late in their careers isn't as unusual as it used to be. We've seen icons like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and even Brett Favre find new homes when everyone assumed they'd retire in familiar uniforms. Maybe this is just KELCE's turn. Perhaps the story of his career isn't about loyalty to one team, but about chasing new experiences and proving he can thrive anywhere. If that's the case, then the Dolphins are getting a future Hall of Famer hungry to make a statement. Chiefs fans may hate the idea, but for the league as a whole, the drama only adds intrigue to a season that was already shaping up to be unforgettable. Right now, nothing is official, but the buzz is deafening. Whether this ends with KELCE in Miami, or blockbuster contract extension in Kansas City, or some other twist that nobody saw coming, one thing is clear: his future has become the hottest topic in football. The surreal nature of the rumor has everyone talking, and until a definitive announcement is made, speculation will only grow. Fans are refreshing their feeds, insiders are dropping hints, and the entire NFL community is bracing for what could be one of the most jaw-dropping moves of the decade. Travis Kelce in a Dolphins uniform, just saying it out loud feels unreal. But maybe, just maybe, it's about to become reality. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up!